Her explosive interview with veteran broadcaster Piers Morgan on Good Morning Britain went viral all around the world. But she's been saying everything that everyone else is afraid to say. I'm talking about Dr. Shola Mos-Shogbamimu, who's a lawyer, activist, and an author who's passionate about race and racism. She sat down with me as we discussed her book, This Is Why I Resist, Don't Deny My Blackness, the monarchy and racism. And let's now take a look.
I want us to start off talking about that very bold, strong title behind you of your book, This Is Why I Resist. It really is a bold, fierce statement. How did you come up with it, and what does it stand for?
It's exactly how I feel. The words, This Is Why I Resist, encapsulates my passion, my anger, my determination for change. And I strongly feel that other people who are equally fighting to end racial inequality and end racial injustice feel exactly the same. So it doesn't matter what cause you stand for. I think the words "This Is Why I Resist" reflects that passion for change.
And then you say, don't define my black identity. In other words, don't put me in a box. You know, give us more as we try and understand and get to the depth of this.
This is the problem with the societal structure we live in nationally and globally. There is this thing called the black identity, right? It's not been formalized, but we've all lived through it. You were born into that social construct. I was born into that social construct. We did not create the social construct of race, of different races, because as far as I'm aware, God only created one race, and it's the human race. But those who thought they know better than God decided to create a social construct based on the superiority of white people versus inferiority of, or what they call inferiority of black people just because of the color of our skin. Makes no sense. But we know from history and the current legacy that we live in that this is how they dehumanize black people.
Some people want perhaps to deny that racism actually exists or treat it like it's perhaps not an issue at all. What is to be learned around that school of thought and that narrative that's in the end quite dangerous?
That's exactly what you should be resisting. So to those who come up to your face or who in any way, form or manner through their complicity and silence enable this false doctrine that racism doesn't exist or it is not as bad as it used to be, you need to resist that. You need to resist it with the knowledge that it does exist and with the knowledge that black and ethnic minorities, we all experience different nuances of racism. So there are going to be some nuances of racism that I will experience that you will never experience, or that you will experience that I will never experience. It does not in any way take away your experience simply because I have not experienced it. And people need to understand how it works. We have it, there's not just the legacy, there's the proof, the data that it exists today as, from the legacy of slavery and from the continued enabling of white supremacy. So whether it's in schools, the workplace, whether it's in our political governments, this mindset of structural racism, it feeds through policies, legislation, and the interpretation and the application of those legislations and the policies and procedures. People have to think about that. This thing is real. And this is why I always say, look, when the good Lord was dishing out patients, I wasn't in that queue. So those who are still at the ABC level of racism, don't make me waste time on you, because you see, I'm on the front line. I'm on the Pythagoras theorem, the calculus level, and I have to reserve my energy where it is needed. But those who want to deny, they want to pull down our strength. They want to exhaust us because they think that, well, if I waste her time or his time arguing back and forth, they will then see that there's no point having this conversation. No. There are people who are living in degrees of discomfort because of racism. And we have to use our voices, we have to use our skill set, we have to use our influence, we have to use every single thing that we have and we are called to be to stand against inequality and injustice.
Now, of course, the most explosive element, I mean, as you speak about the UK, highly anticipated interview with Oprah Winfrey, when we learned that there was a claim that someone in the royal house had concerns about how dark-skinned the couple's son would be. I mean, you speak about the subtle and sophistication of racism. What was your immediate reaction when you heard of this?
So you see the look on Oprah Winfrey's face? That was the look on my face. Not shocked that somebody said that in the royal family, but outraged at how dare they? How dare they? How in heaven's name do they think they could get away with that? I can't even begin to articulate the kind of pressure that would have mentally, physically on Meghan Markle being a biracial woman of black heritage. Can you imagine how that would affect anybody's, mental health? So I just thought to myself now, okay, so not only is that out of order, that must be called out. Whoever made that statement or whoever it is on behalf of others thought that they were, I don't know, they had what it took to go say it to their brother or to their, family member, Harry, like wink, wink, it's just us having a conversation. Mm-hmm. That person and those people and that mindset is symptomatic of Britain today.
Mm. And the Royal House has denied any claims or attachments to racism. But what does that then speak to when we look at the deeper history of the slave trade, going really deep on the racist elements that have been within and perhaps now brewing to a point where we're all physically aware of some trouble there?
I think that the royal family as an institution, so I'm not necessarily speaking about specific members of the royal family, I'm talking about monarchy as an institution. Mm-hmm. The same energy they're using to hire an independent law firm to undertake a review of bullying allegations against Meghan Markle is that energy they should use to undertake an independent review of racism that is perpetuated by the institution that is the monarchy. If they did that, I would see some balance. Mm-hmm. And I think the denial that structural systems like the monarchy don't perpetuate the very structural racism that exists in this country, in the United Kingdom, that's just a palpable lie. So this should not be about the royal family as an institution being defensive, because I think that's the wrong take. What they should do is take a step back and go, okay, let us review. Let's do what we've never done before. Let's review how we've benefited from a structural system in our country as a royal family. What exactly do we perpetuate? I mean, take a look in January when Prince William spoke out against the racist attacks on Marcus Rashford, the footballer. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What did that tell you? I'm like, the Nigerian name is like, So you can speak out against racism. Yeah. So why didn't you speak out against the racist attack on your sister-in-law, Meghan, for all those years?
Now, as a strong, deeply rooted Nigerian woman, how much of your background has influenced or perhaps shaped your ideologies?
That's an interesting question. I'm British Nigerian. Yeah. I'm African from the roots of my head to the soles of my feet, and I'm proud of my heritage. Mm-hmm. My heritage is as a Nigerian, my heritage as a British woman. Now, and with my heritage, particularly as a Nigerian, I was brought up by parents who always taught me to be the best that I can be. Definitely my upbringing, my faith, plays a lot into you shaping who I am today, and the choices I have to make. So the lessons I have learned personally on my journey has also helped shape my thinking and the choices.
With your book, who were you writing it for? As you penned it down, as you went through the phases of eventually releasing it, who did you have in mind?
To be honest, everybody. This is why we say speaks to those who deny racism exists. It speaks to those who are oblivious, who are deliberately and willfully oblivious to racism. It speaks to those who are like, oh, I want to learn more. I need to clear the cobwebs in my head. This is why it speaks to those who are like-minded and who want to know what more can we do. And I think it can build solidarity that way. There's no sugarcoating in this book. There is no, well, let me make you feel comfortable over a nice cup of tea, and then I feed you, bite-sized chunks and wait for you to be ready. I don't have time for that. As I said, when the good Lord was dishing out patients, Shola was not in that queue. I was probably feeding my face with God knows what. The point is, this is the time for action. In 2021, I cannot believe we're having the same conversation, the same struggles that people in my parents' generation, my grandparents' generation, my great-great-great-grandparents' generation were having. And you expect me to be calm about it? No. That's why, this is why I resist. It's for those who are ready to be challenged, those who are ready not to be defensive. I'm hoping that when people read the book, they can feel that they're having a conversation with me, because that's the important thing. Let's identify and be on the same page, which is that racism does exist. And now let's have a conversation about the solution to it. Therein lies the difference. The problem right now is we're so divided as a global society on racism.
How much do you think classism has to do with the racist agenda?
Classism intersects with racism. Every form of inequality intersects with racism. That is the issue. Everything. This is why we say intersectionality applies here. And people need to they need to open their eyes. That's when people go, well, everybody's racist to each other. Please read my book. Read my book. Because as I explained, white people perpetuate racism. Black and ethnic minorities do not perpetuate racism. We don't have the power construct. Racism works not just top to bottom, but bottom up. It means that even the least, those who may be perceived as least, whether it's a white homeless person or white poor working class, will have privilege and have power over a black person, regardless of what standing that black person has. It is why you have the Amy Coopers of this world, who can pick up the phone and call the police and use trigger words like, an African American man is threatening me and my dog. That's the society we live in.
This that statement in your book where you speak about white people perpetuating racism, you have gotten a lot of backlash for it. And I've seen some of your interviews where you're really being attacked for that very statement. What message would you give to us here in South Africa as we reflect on Human Rights Day, and as we are still right in the middle of racism, and it's affecting us not only, here in South Africa, but worldwide?
I think it's important to examine your history and look at how it translates into the present, particularly when you talk about racism and human rights violations. For South Africa, definitely I say, look, as a nation, you've come such a long way. You fought so many battles. Learn from your history so that history doesn't repeat itself. And we must always find a way to find that balance. That's what I say. And I believe strongly that South Africa can do it. We can all do it. I pray Britain, yes, can do it. United States can do it. But we have to get to that point where we are ready to have the conversation, which is why I'm not holding back on what I have to say. And I'm not going to sugarcoat my words to make people feel comfortable. They can go speak to another activist for that.
Thank you so much for your time. It was lovely chatting you. Thank you for joining us on Newzroom Afrika.
Thank you.